where did that girl go that was fearless, that was excited, that was passionate, that had ambition? Where did that girl go that had dreams, bigger dreams than you could even imagine? Because I've been there. I've been the girl who woke up one day and couldn't really recognize herself and was like, where did those pieces of myself go that I loved so much? And then I realized that I have just been shrinking myself down into a box. The stories that everyone is told, that as you get older, life is not supposed to be as much fun, and you're not supposed to be as playful, and you're not supposed to go after your dreams, and those are just pipe dreams, and you live in the clouds. And there's just so many things. I could keep going on and on and on about all of the things that people tell us that aren't true in my mind. Welcome to the Blue Rose Podcast. I'm your host, Becca Blue Rose, a runner, storyteller, and believer in creating a life that feels like your own. Some weeks it's just you and me, and other weeks I'm joined by women who are chasing their own version of a bold, unapologetic life. Together we explore what it really means to take risks and trust your own path. Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Super glad that you guys are here today. Today, I want to talk about reclaiming parts of yourself that were lost. I want to talk about fear casting, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what I've been reading, what I've been thinking about, and why I think it matters and why I think women need to hear this. So, to start us off, I want to read you guys a quote from The Woman Who Ran with Wolves, because if you haven't read that book, I think every female on the planet should read that book. I think it is an incredible read. And she writes, "If you have never been called a defiant, incorrigible, impossible woman, have no fear, there is still time." And for a long time, as a lot of women are, I think you're afraid to be called too much. I think you're afraid to be defiant or to do something out of the norm or to not be people pleasing, because we are taught to people please and we're supposed to keep everyone else's feelings intact and keeping the peace, and we want to make sure that everyone else is okay. As long as they're okay, we're okay, because then there's no conflict. And today I want to talk about how that thinking kind of leads to feeling like you're losing parts of yourself, and then wondering, like, where did she go? Where did that girl go that was fearless, that was excited, that was passionate, that had ambition? Where did that girl go that had dreams, bigger dreams than you could even imagine? Because I've been there. I've been the girl who woke up one day and couldn't really recognize herself and was like, where did those pieces of myself go that I loved so much? And then I realized that I have just been shrinking myself down into a box. The stories that everyone is told, that as you get older, life is not supposed to be as much fun, and you're not supposed to be as playful, and you're not supposed to go after your dreams, and those are just pipe dreams, and you live in the clouds. And there's just so many things. I could keep going on and on and on about all of the things that people tell us that aren't true in my mind. And firstly, I want to talk about the reason I've been thinking a lot about a lot of this is because I have been reading a lot more recently, and I recently did a podcast about perspective and how I think that sometimes you just need a new perspective. And I've been getting a lot of really cool and unique perspectives on my reading journey this year. I didn't pick up a book for like a year. I'll be honest, I finished maybe one book in 2025. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame around that. And I think I talked about that in that episode. And I felt like, why am I not reading? Like, am I dumb? Am I getting stupid? Is my attention span gone? Like, what's wrong with me? And I obviously did not know how to give myself grace. But then I think as I've picked up books this year that have had nothing to do with anything that I have read before and have been completely different perspectives and different writers and different people, books that I never would have picked up, I realize, like, I think I just needed a new perspective. I'm at a different period of life. And I've been reading a lot of historical fiction, And I just read Isola, and I don't remember who the author is, to be completely honest, but what I gathered from that book is that women, for as long as time has gone on, have been told what they should and shouldn't be doing, what they can't be doing, that they, in this book, she's told that she can't hunt, that she can't kill something because she's a woman and it's not ladylike. She's not allowed to wear that because it's not ladylike, even if it's going to keep her warm. She doesn't know how to build shelter. She's not allowed to do X, Y, and Z. She's supposed to sit and be proper and do her knitting needles and all of these things. And throughout this story, she has to fend for herself, and she realizes how strong and resilient and independent she is and how easy and luxurious her life was. This book is about New France, and it was during a time where like women had dowries and all the things. And so she came from a wealthy family, and so she had everything done for her. And so she didn't know how to do anything, but she learned. I think it was a pretty incredible book to see how someone who didn't know how to do anything for themselves could be transformed into really knowing how to do just about everything for themselves, and fight for their life and fight for their survival, and just realizing how strong and independent she is. And that theme right there of like, when a woman realizes how strong and independent she is, I just don't think there's anything that can stop her. But it's really difficult sometimes to not let the outside voices get a hold of you. And so that's what I've been reading recently, and I think it's kinda given me like a little spark to life, and it made me think about my own self and all the things that people have told me, "You can't do that," or "It's too dangerous," or "You shouldn't be doing that." And this is what I love to call fear casting. It's when people project their own limitations onto you. I don't know if that's what it's actually called. I don't know if that's the actual definition, but that is the definition that I like to go by, because it's just when people, are just putting their fear onto you, and it's rarely about your ability or that they don't think that you're capable. It's that people have their own boundaries and their own limitations for themselves and their own fear, and they don't know how to deal with their own fear and their own, like, your bravery sometimes, and I've talked about this before, just makes them feel like they are standing still. And so when I talk about a woman realizing that she is strong and she is independent and that she can do anything that she wants to, something else I feel like I want to talk about is regret. And I want to talk about this because in the book, there is a lot of talk about regret because she does something that, in the book that is deemed sinful, and she doesn't regret it. It makes her who she is, and it has its place, and she learns a lot. She wouldn't have learned any of the things that she did if she didn't do the thing that was considered sinful in this book. And I had a recent conversation with a friend about regret, and we were talking about how, yes, like, regret makes you who you are, and I don't regret anything because um yeah, it makes me who I am and it puts me on this path. But then, people get to the end of their life and, they say they have no regrets. But I think that regret is an innate part of being a human being, and regret is what teaches us. And it was something that I hadn't really thought about too much recently. I haven't really thought about regret a whole ton because I'm like, oh, I'm definitely someone that's always been like, I want to live with no regrets. But I think that being human is to regret things. Like, I'm sure we all have things like, yeah, if I could go back to high school and maybe do something differently, I probably would. But it's not like I'm like thinking about it all the time. It's not like like I'm dreading, or I'm just like marinating on it, right? It's not like I'm sitting here like and not moving forward. I think regret becomes a problem when you're not moving forward because of the regret. I think you have to learn obviously from your mistakes, right? Like, we all make mistakes. We all probably wish that we could have done something differently, but I think the point is maybe living based on that regret and like learning from it and moving forward. And so this the reason I bring up regret and independence at the same time is because I think that sometimes there is this discouragement that comes with making a mistake where a woman feels like, she's independent, she's capable, she can do this. And then maybe she makes a mistake, she does something wrong, and then everyone's like, I told you so. Or, she talks herself out of it because it didn't work out the first time. And so then there's a lot of regret. And then I beg the question of like, are the people that you're talking to, are the people that are fear casting onto you, are they an expert in what they're doing? Have they lived a life that you want to live? Do you trust them? Do you trust their judgment and their opinion? And I think that you have to ask yourself if people are coming at you with a place of love or a place of their own fear. And so to give you guys a little bit more of like an example of what I'm talking about, I have a personal story that I'm going to share with you guys. I have always loved solo traveling. And if you've been around this podcast for a really long time, you know that that has been a deeply ingrained part of my identity. I have always loved traveling. I want to see the world. I want to see every inch of this world. And I have been in the same place now for 3 years. And that feels crazy. That feels really difficult for someone that likes to be on the move, that likes to experience change, that likes to go to new places and try new things. And for about a year now, I have been itching to take a solo trip to reclaim a part of my identity that I feel like got lost when I got into a relationship. And it's not because of the person that I am with, it is because I didn't feel like it was possible. And one, I think it's really easy when you get into a relationship to be like, well, I just want to travel with that person. And that's 100% fine. But then you get to a point where you're like, oh, like you kind of get far enough along in your relationship where you're like, that was a big part of my identity and I love that about myself. And how do I make space for that? How do I make space for myself in a relationship that I love with a person that I love? And how do I make space for that? How do I also make space for that with relationships with friends, right? Like, I want to go to do this big, awesome thing, and I don't want to invite a single person with me. Like, that feels hurtful sometimes, or that feels crazy, or I feel guilty. I felt so guilty for sitting there and being like, I want to go on a solo trip. Like, I want to go away for 2 weeks, and I want to go away for a month maybe, and I don't want anyone to come with me. And that feels really difficult and really challenging because you don't want to hurt people and it's not because you don't love them or you don't want to travel with them or whatever it is, right? Like it has nothing to do with them. And so this was an experience that I was having recently because I've been wanting to reclaim this part of myself. And so I started coming up with ideas. Like I was just like, oh, I could go do this. I could go do this. I could, there was 10 different ideas that I had. And I think I was really nervous to say them out loud and to tell people like this is what I wanted to do because I feel like it's not what you're supposed to do, quote, like you're supposed to want to go on trips with your partner and with your friends and you're supposed to want to go see your family instead or you're not supposed to spend that much money on a solo trip by yourself or whatever it is, right? Like there's just so many or you're not supposed to travel alone as a woman because it's too dangerous. And I think that I didn't really tell a lot of people that I was doing this until I was kind of like, "Oh, no, I'm doing this." And, as an adult, you don't have to ask permission, but sometimes it's really hard to keep the negative voices out, and so sometimes just not telling people is, like, the easiest way to go. And so I started throwing out all these ideas, and, my partner was like, "Yeah, you should go do that. That'd be awesome." And just kept being like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Go do that." And for a minute there, I was kind of taken back because I was kind of surprised. I was like, "You sure? Like, you don't care?" And my parents were like, "He doesn't care." Like, "You sure? He doesn't wanna come with you?" So, I think I just I got the reassurance that I needed from my partner being like, "Oh, yeah, like, you should go do that." I think it's because he knows it's such a big piece of me, and it's something that I have been wanting to do, but maybe just haven't been able to admit, and maybe people know that, and they're like, "No, like, you should go do this." So long story short, I ended up booking a 2-week trip for myself this summer, and it involved a lot of running and a lot of fast packing and sitting on the beach and going to a country that I've always wanted to go to, Madeira in Portugal, and so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do like a 5-day fast packing trip, and it's gonna be incredible. But I had such a hard time booking the trip, and Becca 2 years ago would not have even hesitated at the opportunity. She would have been like, "Oh, I thought of this. I'm booking it right now. Don't care, like, what anyone says. I'm booking it." And as I've gotten a little older, I think I've realized that, it's people think it's cute when you're 22, 23, 24, solo traveling around the world, not really knowing what you're doing. People think it's cute. People think it's fun. You get to your late 20s and then people are like, "You got to be practical. You got to know what you're doing. You can't just do that. Why are you doing that?" And and then there's a lot of, especially from people that love you, there's a lot of like, "Well, why don't you invite your friends? Like, why are you going alone? Are you sure you're gonna be able to do this? That seems like a lot. Are you capable of doing this? Like, are you sure that you're gonna be okay?" And they put a lot of fear into your head, obviously because they love you, but they put so much fear and this like projected limitation into your head about like what you can and can't do and what you are capable of. And then you question yourself. And so I'm sitting here about to book these flights and I'm like, "Oh my God, like, what if something happens to me? What if something goes wrong? Like, I don't know if I can do this." And it's been almost 3 years since I've hopped on a plane by myself to go on like a solo adventure. And this is again a very different experience than my past experiences, but it's just been a very long time, and so when you're not exercising that muscle and when you kind of lose that piece of yourself, it's kind of like, "Oh, like, this is weird, this feels weird, and I don't know what to do about it, and I don't know how to act, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say, but I'm a 27-year-old adult, and I don't need to ask anyone's permission. I don't need to ask my partner's permission. I don't need to ask my parents' permission." But yet, part of me still feels like there's, like, this orb of people's opinions just kind of, like, floating at you, and it felt scary and it felt really uncomfortable. I was like doing all my trip research and I was booking everything and I was like putting my credit card in and I was spending the money and then the flights were booked. And this happened so fast where like I swear to God, in the span of a week, I had this idea. And then by the end of the week, I had a trip booked and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going." And it's in less than 2 months. Like this was such a last minute thing. And previous Becca, like 3 years ago, Becca would just be like, "Oh yeah, like this is spontaneity. Like I'm doing this. I'm doing it. I want to do it and we're not going to think about it again." But now, being me and being 27 and having more of like an established life, I realize how easy it is to one, lose parts of yourself in the comfort of the life that you have created. Because let's be real, it's really nice to have a life that's, comfortable and it's enjoyable and I love my life. And so it's like it's really easy to just be like, "Oh, like, I don't need to go do that, like, I can do that next year." And part of me was kind of leaning towards that. I was like, "Oh, like, it's a lot," like, I have quite a bit of travel planned this year. One of my goals for this year was also, you know, being financially literate and, like, having a budget and staying within my budget and tracking all my finances and making sure that I'm spending within my budget. And so to sit there and be like, okay, like punching the numbers, being like, how the heck am I going to make this happen? And like figuring out the system and being like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stay here and figuring out a way to make it happen made me realize, because at first I got so overwhelmed with the planning. If anyone has ever like gone on a hut to hut trip in Europe, it is like kind of challenging to like use their websites and use their system. And it was quite challenging and overwhelming, and I, like, wanted to cry, and I felt very exhausted from trying to figure this out, but it was, like, 4 days of, like, discomfort for, like, an amazing result where I was like, "Oh my god, that took 4 days," but it only took 4 days, and I just feel like I need to say that again, is like It was a lot, but it only took 4 days to come together, and it was, like, in the span of a week, I had an idea. I was like, "I don't know how the heck I'm making it happen," but I was so excited, and I was like, "I'm gonna make it happen," and then I made it happen, and then I booked the trip, and then I felt, like, quite anxious about it and overwhelmed, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, what is happening to me?" Like, I felt like this core piece of my identity was just gone because old Becca would just not feel this way. But then I also leaned on the fact that I knew that if I didn't do this for myself, if I decided you know what? I'm not gonna go because, it's a lot of money and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time and I'm just not ready. And maybe my parents are right and maybe everyone is right and I shouldn't be doing this and I can't be doing it. And if I let all of that get into my head and I had said, you know what? I'll go next year or I'll go another time or I'll do something else. If I had done that, I know I would have regretted it. I know I would have gotten to June when I'm supposed to leave, and I would have been like, "Man, I could have been on that trip right now." And I had other options. Either way, I was like, "I'm taking a solo adventure." But I leaned on excitement. I leaned on the fact that this was the thing that was exciting me the most, and that was the thing I wanted to do. And I had to not talk myself out of it because it is so easy to talk yourself out of things, to be like, "Well, I'm gonna be away for 2 weeks, like, that's a long time," or "I'm taking too much PTO," or "I'm not gonna" I'm spending too much of my money, or "I need to be saving," like, there's always a reason to say no to something, but I also think there's always a reason to say yes to something, and there's always a reason to saying yes to igniting your passion and reclaiming a part of yourself that you feel like is lost. And so with that, this felt like a very big moment for me to reclaim a part of myself that I feel like had been lost for a while, and I don't think I realized how far away it was, but I felt like over the past few months, I just felt so discontent, and I felt like I didn't know how to be content in what I was doing and how I was living, and I feel like it's because I almost feel like I was trapping myself. Like, no one else was telling me that I couldn't go do something that I wanted to do. No one else had that power over me. I was telling myself a story inside my own head. I was telling myself all the small ways that this idea was stupid, it was inconvenient, it was irresponsible. It was just this, like, whole experience where, like, I just kept telling myself, "Yeah, you shouldn't be doing this." But nobody else was telling me that, and I think that as women, we tell ourselves these stories to shrink ourselves down and to fit into a mold, even if we don't think that we have to, and we don't think there's anyone out there telling us that we can and can't do something. Sometimes it just happens because we get into a routine and we get into our lives and then we get on this path. And once you're on a path, sometimes it's more uncomfortable and it's harder to leave the path and to go have new experiences and to be like, this is what I need. Like, I need alone time. I need a solo trip. I need X, Y, and Z, like, you name it, whatever it is. Maybe your thing isn't solo travel. Maybe your thing isn't an adventure. Maybe it's a long lost hobby that you've lost because of 10 reasons I can't even think of naming right now. But maybe it's a hobby you've lost, or maybe it's a friend that you've lost contact with, or maybe it's an activity that people said was too dangerous, but you wanna try anyways, or whatever it is, like, maybe it's a dream that you had that people just stomped on. Maybe you wanna open a business and someone's like, "No." Maybe you wanna write a book and people are like, "Well, that's too hard." Whatever it is, there's always something I think women have this, like, incredible power, this incredible intuition to know what is meant for their life and to just truly trust themselves and to have this, like, creative and feminine energy that is passionate and excited, and I think we're all meant to dream and have things that make us excited, and it's incredible, but it's really hard when you let that part of yourself go and you let everyone else's concerns seep in and you don't let yourself be the whole woman that you are. So this week I want to ask you to do one thing for yourself that maybe feels inconvenient or uncomfortable or makes you think that, oh, I'm too much or I'm too passionate or too excited, or share a dream with someone or plan that trip or start whatever it is that you want to do, and take one step forward into reclaiming a part of yourself. Like, look back on your last 5 years and be like, who was I then? What did I love to do? And is there a piece of yourself that feels discontented? And ask yourself that question. Ask yourself what you could be doing to just take one more step towards reclaiming a piece of yourself that maybe feels like it got lost along the way. I think we all have that. And maybe you're not. Maybe you are doing everything that feels aligned and good, and that's awesome. But I do think there will come a time, there's always a time where, we say no to something because we think it's, yeah, too expensive, or it's too dangerous, or it's too X, Y, and Z, even if it's something that is aligned with us. If it is something that is aligned with you, there is never a good time for anything. And there's never a good time to be like, you know what? This is who I am now. I'm changing X, Y, and Z about my personality. And on the flip side, I think that there's always a good time, because people say there's never a good time. And I think every day is a good time to try something new, to start something new, to reclaim a part of yourself, and to just keep reigniting those pieces of yourself that light you up. And don't listen to other people about what you should and shouldn't be doing, because you are strong and you are independent and you are capable. And when women figure out that they are strong and that they are independent and they are capable of anything and anything and everything that they dream of, I think women are unstoppable. With that, guys, I leave you with my thoughts for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please send it to a friend, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Blue Rose Podcast. If you love this episode, please hit follow, leave a review, or send it to a friend who's building their own bold life. Keep trusting yourself, and I'll see you next week.